What's good, folks? Family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle Earth to another episode of Disguise Coverage, the only podcast with an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin, presented by the best pizza in Buffalo, New York. That is One Pipe Pizza. Find the online menu in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you're listening to this show on. I'm your host, Anthony Prohaska. Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro, 2_ANT. Find me on Blue Sky at ProAnt. No underscores there, just PROANT. Apologies for not having my mic in front of my face as we went live here on this show. As Bearded Johnson in the comments says, blueberry muffins. Yes, equal amount of blueberries in each muffin, as always, here on this show. And in this episode of Disguise Coverage, we'll be diving into the Buffalo Bills' initial 53-man roster, just released, maybe like 50 minutes ago, 40 minutes ago, roughly, depending on what time, if you're joining us live or whenever you're watching this. We're recording this live here Tuesday, August 26th at 7 Eastern. Yeah, so the roster just went live. I just started getting caught up with it as I was creating this episode and going through. Andrew, thank you very much for telling the rest of the chat there that it's a casino reference. Appreciate you very much for that, for the Blueberry Muffins reference. Yeah, the roster just came through. The Bills are one of the last teams, I believe, to kind of push out their initial 53. So we're going to dive into that. Likes, dislikes, strengths, concerns, worries, surprises, how the injured and suspended players will come, kind of come to pass later in the season when they're eligible to come back, who we think could potentially drop off from the roster at that point. But we're going to dive into all of that as we go forward here on this show. And with an episode like this, especially, this time of year as the season is upcoming and everybody's excited, sometimes emotions are running high in conjunction with that. Any questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, anything and everything you folks have, feel free to put it into the live chat. We will be diving into as much as physically possible as we go through here in this episode, especially on the episodes where I run solo. I like to make them as interactive as possible. This is always a very interactive show and engaging show with the chat, but especially when I run solo, I like to bring up as many comments and thoughts as we can throughout the entirety of the episode. As always, super chats get priority because I respect the monetary donation, and the color distracts me from my eyes and my notes and all of those pieces. We're going to grab several comments from the chat before we dive in, and we're just going to start ripping and running with this roster. Trucker viewers, first one in gets first comment, says, hi all, what's up? The first comment here says, good decision. Well, second comment, I should say, good decisions, I think. Let's see who we can get back on the practice squad. Jackson, Wilkerson, Gore, kind of a plus, and et cetera. We're going to be diving into that segment towards the back end of this episode in terms of practice squad priorities, players we'd like to see. Noah says, depending on Trey, what are the odds we make Bradbury Josh Norman 2.0? I'm going to say low at this stage, just given where Bradbury is, where the Bills are, what they're looking for. I'm going to say low. John says plenty of positives. Chris says, who were the real surprises, though? In terms of the cuts, we're going to get into some of that. Ooh, this comment, I just woke up and haven't seen the cuts. This show will be my first time hearing them. I'm glad that you joined me here. Thank you for waking up in time. Thank you for being here. A little bit of a different time for Disguise Coverage tonight. Not the normal 9 p.m. Eastern. Obviously, you're live at 7 p.m. Eastern. That's because I have some day job stuff. Some of you folks, you may know that I do some things with folks overseas. So I have a late night call tonight, which is interfering with the Disguise Coverage time. That's why we're going a little live earlier tonight, which works out because of the news that dropped. Justin Tippecanoe says, go sports team. I like it. We got some Blueberry Muffins comments in the chat and got that funneling through. Comment here. What are your thoughts on keeping 6 wide receivers, even with all the injuries to cornerback? We are going to 1,000% dive into both of those pieces. I like this comment here. Now I just really want a muffin. Oh, Matt saying, did Dwayne Carter deserve to make the roster? Steve the Barber says, Josh Allen made the team. A little bit of surprise. DF Forever coming in saying, Ant, after 2 seasons in a row of them only taking 5 wide receivers into week 1, does 6 wide receivers shock you? A little bit. I find it a little surprising, but also kind of not. We're going to get into it as we get into the wide receiver spot, but I like where your head's at there. Bills are electric saying, I don't think the Bills will be claiming a random player around the league because the 52 and 53 man on the roster are players that know the system and are worth keeping. I think that is very, very well said. Oh, Stuck Mode says, yeah, I'm kind of late. So a full breakdown on the cuts would be appreciated. Absolutely. I'm going to pull up the roster from the official Bills site. We're going to go through it player by player, obviously see who's not included there, discuss them, and all that kind of stuff. Bum, bum, bum. What else? What else? Andrew says, so Trey must not be hurt that bad. Fingers crossed. I'm very superstitious, but fingers crossed on that front and that regard. All right, let us dive into the roster. I'm going to pull up, as I mentioned, the Bills official. This is right off the Buffalo Bills website. This is their roster breakdown by position. Start here. Picture of Josh Allen, and then the breakdown by position there. Some of you saw the running back and wide receiver ones, a little bit of a spoiler, but we'll start here. Not too much to talk about, I think, here when it comes to the QB position. But again, if anybody has any thoughts, feel free. Put it up into the chat. John Roberts says, I didn't think Brandon Codrington would have made the 53-man roster. Spoiler, he did. He looks to be the returner for this team. Hence why I put him in the graphic for this episode. But some QB pieces will lead off. I'm just going to go in order as they have it here on the site. Keep it nice and succinct for all you folks, especially because I'm sharing essentially the site there and don't want to make it too much of like a spoiler thing, what I'm showing, what we're not showing. So we'll just go in order here. I don't think too much to talk about when it comes to the QBs, aside from I thought Mike White played well. Mike White was my hope in kind of overtaking Mitch Trubisky this offseason. But Trubisky played well in camp. And my biggest issue with Trubisky was, and I've talked about it a bit on the show, I felt like he was a bit broken, like mentally or spiritually or emotionally after his time in Chicago, which is understandable, right? The Bears trade up for him. He goes into a major city that loves its football and is very critical when things aren't going well. He has some success early on and then kind of falls off a cliff, as does that Bears team. Comes to Buffalo, goes to Pittsburgh, comes back to Buffalo, but I felt like he played very cautiously, very safe, wasn't really letting it rip in preseason and camp, really much of anything. And again, like a lot of people say and know, if Josh Allen goes down, this team is in trouble. But I still wanted somebody at the QB2 spot that I thought could be a little bit more of a gunslinger and rip it a little bit. And Mike White has shown more of that in recent years than Trubisky had. But I thought Trubisky played well in the preseason. A couple of nice balls on the move, the deep shot to Shavers at the end of the first half against the Giants. Really nice play in the pocket. I think also against the Giants there, or it may have been the second game against the Bears where, no, I think it was the Giants game where he evades, spins while in the pocket, avoids the pressure, slings one sidearm to Palmer. It was against the Giants. Just a really nice move there. Showed some athleticism, showed some arm strength and some poise. I thought he played well. And because he played well and played well enough, I thought Mike White or even Shane Buechele was going to have to do a lot to overtake Trubisky, given the respect that Trubisky has built and credibility that he's built within the organization, the QB room, the staff, and this franchise overall. So I thought it would either have to be Trubisky really falling off a cliff or Mike White really surpassing him and balling out. And I thought Trubisky played well. I thought Mike White played well as well, but not enough to overtake Trubisky. So I'm not completely surprised by this. Obviously, here we see only two QBs. We'll see who the Bills keep on the practice squad. Is it Mike White? Is it Shane Buechele? Is it somehow both? I thought Buechele played really well in the preseason finale against the Bucs, really owning the offense completely from start to finish and playing well. And I like Trubisky in theory. If he can get a little more of Bears Mitch Trubisky, that might sound negative considering how his time in Chicago ended up. But if he can tap into that athleticism again and that mobility and some of the playmaking and just the explosives that he was able to generate, I'm okay with him, maybe playing one or two games. God forbid anything happens to Josh Allen. But if anything happens to Allen, we know it's going to be a rough time for this team. But Mitch Trubisky and Josh Allen are your two quarterbacks on the Buffalo Bills' initial 53-man roster. So comment from you folks. Yeah, Andrew saying Mitch did play well. Jeff says, I'm surprised Josh Allen made the cut and starting over Mitch. That might be the bigger newsworthy thing here, that they've already kind of put Josh Allen in as QB1. Little interesting. Good comment here saying, yeah, it looks like Trubisky starting to embrace being a backup for now. Yeah, a little bit. Yamster saying Trubisky did just enough, comes with the experience. I think that's fair. Good comment here from Roy even as well, saying, I think Mike White, gunslinger attitude can get you in trouble, though. Fair. And especially when you're looking at a backup, maybe they want somebody to play a little safer. But yeah, kudos to Trubisky for making it and earning another roster spot here with the Buffalo Bills. Let's go to the next position group listed here on the Buffalo Bills website. They've got 4 listed here for running back. That is because they have included Reggie Gilliam as a, quote unquote running back, but he's listed as a fullback here. I don't think any more surprises here. Honestly, I don't think there's much to talk about here with the running back room either. James Cook, Ray Davis, Ty Johnson, Reggie Gilliam at fullback. I will take this opportunity to mention I would like more Reggie Gilliam in this offense. I would like more 21 personnel. I would like to see Reggie Gilliam and Jackson Hawes on the front side of runs, creating displacement and mashing the hell out of defenses. I would like that very much, and I would be very excited if that were to happen. Multiple comments already coming in for Frank Gore. I liked him a lot last preseason. I liked him a lot this preseason. He's not the sexiest back, but he just seems very efficient and effective almost every time he touches the ball, whether it's with the run, whether it's, catching it out of the backfield. He's good in pass pro in terms of execution and his scannability and readability. I hope he makes it back on the practice squad. He is somebody who I think is a practice squad priority guy for me, for this team. I also wonder, has he made enough noise that he gets claimed by someone else? And does someone else add him as an RB3 somewhere else? Happened with Blackshear several years ago when he saw real snaps in the regular season for the Carolina Panthers as they suffered some injuries there at that position. And he was, a bit of a Bills Mafia favorite that preseason as well. So I'm interested to see what happens with Frank Gore Jr. I even thought Elijah Young played decent in spurts. I've liked what the Bills really have churned out for running backs the past several years. And again, I really, really, really like Frank Gore Jr. I think the ceiling is somewhat limited for him, and that's why you see, Ray Davis still being there, Ty Johnson being there. This is a really good running back room, though, any way you slice it, even if you are upset about Frank Gore Jr. I find this funny. This guy came in to say this guy talks way too fast. You commented this on my last episode, and you came in to the live stream to comment this again. I appreciate your dedication, even though I find it a bit sad, but kudos to you. Do you and enjoy your life. I think it's pretty interesting that Frank Gore, again, another preseason, not making the roster, not the craziest thing in the world. Good player, tough to crack this running back room. I said it a couple weeks ago that I like the way he plays. Similar verbiage I used earlier here in this episode, talking about the efficient and effective play. It's just really hard to crack this running back room. James Cook is a legit RB1 at this point. Ray Davis is I think, solid RB2. I actually, out of everybody here, I really like Ty Johnson. Good in pass pro, good catching the ball, good running the ball. This is a good running back room. Oh, I got to go back. Shout out to this comment from the post show this past Saturday. Yeah, I went to the State Fair in Syracuse on Sunday. Pizza cone was great. I forget who recommended it. It was tremendous. The food there in general was great. I had only ever been to the Erie County Fair. No shame to that, but the State Fair in Syracuse was awesome. Went with some family friends. It was a great time. We had a great time. It was awesome. It was awesome. Appreciate you, Roy, saying, damn shame when somebody talks a little fast. You actually have to pay attention to the laughing emoji. I appreciate you for that. Yeah. Mike saying, I think if Gore can get back on the practice squad, his chance may come in 26. I think that's fair. I would like to kind of see that potentially. But I don't know. Ty Johnson, I think, signed a 2-year, but you never know. I like him. I hope he gets a shot somewhere. Efficient and effective. Not sexy, but he gets the job done. I appreciate all Gingy saying Ant talks just right. Mark says, listen faster. I like that. Oh, this is good. That guy types too fast. Nice typo. Well done. Walter says, this guy talks way too well-paced. That's very funny. That is very funny. But yeah, I think no surprises in the running back room. I like Frank Gore Jr. Oh, good comment here saying San Francisco will take Gore Jr. in a heartbeat. It would have been cool if they had him in the preseason. It could have been, baby Gore and baby T.O. on the same roster. That would be cool. Yeah, tough running back room to crack. Ty Johnson's a really good RB3. Ray Davis is a fine RB2. I'm interested to see if Ray Davis can be more this season than he was last year, but that's more of a schematic and usage conversation than it is an initial kind of roster reaction 53 type of deal. But not too many surprises here when it comes to the running back room. Let's move that. Let's move on to the wide receiver position, a group that multiple people commented on. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do wide receivers and tight ends together because why not? We'll start with the wide receiver piece. As many of you commented here, thoughts on keeping 6 wide receivers. They've traditionally only kept 5. What are the thoughts here? I do think it's interesting with the wide receiver group. So as we have it listed here, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Josh Palmer, Elijah Moore, Curtis Samuel, and Tyrell Shavers. I know for a lot of folks, it was, hey, let's get rid of Curtis Samuel. He hasn't performed. He's injured again. There's no reason to keep him on the roster. Bounce him for Tyrell Shavers. If it comes down to Samuel and Shavers, get rid of Samuel. Talked about it a bit on the post-game show last week, but I'm going to mention it here again now. Just the dead cap situation for Samuel made, I think, him leaving the roster a bit tough. If they were to release him outright, you get a dead cap hit this year of $8.7 million, a dead cap hit next year of $3.45 million. If you traded him at this point, you get some savings. You save $7.2 million this year and then only incur a dead cap hit of $1.8 this year and the same $3.45 next year. I just don't think there was enough of a financial incentive to remove Curtis Samuel, as Dan here says, Samuel with a whole bunch of dollar signs. Yeah, I never thought it was real. The idea of cutting Curtis Samuel or releasing him and then trading him. Are you going to find a partner for him? And I don't know if they were willing just to say, hey, we'll flip him for a 7th or we'll flip him for a 6th or we'll give somebody Samuel and a 6th for a 5th or 7th or whatever kind of gamesmanship you want to work out there. I didn't see a lot of that as being realistic. And I also think, as Sal says, Samuel's a money player when healthy, no pun intended. I do think he's effective. I wasn't a huge fan of how much money they gave him when he came in as a free agent. Granted, at that time, I still thought he was going to play alongside Stephon Diggs because he was signed before Diggs was, moved from this team. But I think he's a fine piece. I think he's a fine addition. I don't love how much money he's being paid for the role that he's going to have. But as last year showed, he was effective down the stretch as he got healthier. And I don't even think he was still completely healthy down the stretch when he played. So if he can somehow get healthier, I think he can make more of an impact. He played well against Kansas City and Buffalo. He had, a couple nice plays after that. The nice big touchdown against Denver where he really started to show what he could do when he opened it up and was able to move in space a little bit. But again, whether or not he can be healthy or will be healthy is a significant part of this conversation, right? The best of ability is availability. He hasn't had great availability last year and even starting this year again in camp and the preseason. So we'll see what comes of it for Curtis Samuel. But huge shout out to Tyrell Shavers. And this kind of seemed like a move where the writing was on the wall a little bit these past couple of weeks. Shavers played well in the preseason. He looked good in his routes. And also from like a stem standpoint, right? The way he was stemming his routes, selling vertical, being able to create separation. And that's on top of having a legitimate nice size and frame and athleticism combination. He's got some height. He's got some weight. He's got some length. He's got some long speed and he can open it up a little bit. An amazing one-handed catch this past week against Tampa Bay, especially after he had, kind of some unsure hands to start that game against Tampa Bay. He had the drop and then the double catch after that. And then he just a ridiculous one-hander for that touchdown. Add into the fact that he does play special teams. It seemed like the writing was on the wall for Shavers kind of making this team. The big question, I think, for a lot of folks was, you knew Khalil Shakir was making it. Keon Coleman was making it. Josh Palmer was making it. Curtis Samuel, as much as it pained a lot of folks, I think it made sense that he was going to make it. And the question came to, okay, are they only going to keep 5? And if it's 5, is it Elijah Moore or is it Tyrell Shavers? We don't have to answer that. We don't have to worry about answering that. And we don't know because, again, they kept 6 with Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Josh Palmer, Curtis Samuel, Elijah Moore, and Tyrell Shavers. I am interested from a depth chart perspective and from a usage perspective. Who gets more work between Moore and Shavers actually in the scope of the offense once everybody's healthy? And I say that because if Khalil Shakir is banged up, say he's ready for week 1, but he's not 100%, or maybe somehow he's not ready for week 1, I do think that gives Elijah Moore an uptick in snaps because he can function a bit in that Khalil Shakir role. I thought a lot of having Elijah Moore on the roster was tied to the value of him being able to play a bit inside and being able to play a bit outside. You can play him in the slot. You can play him as a Z. You can line him up in different spots, in trips or in bunches or stacks. And you can do several things with him from a route standpoint, even from a gadget standpoint. I know that Bears game was really ugly, but he had a really nice route where he sold an over on play action and quickly sunk his hips, stabbed, and dipped underneath the man covering and popped back outside to create separation. I think he's got some good separation capability and can still have a good fit in the offense. We'll see what the usage looks like, especially with the guys above him. How healthy is Samuel? How healthy is Palmer? He's been banged up, to start this year. Shakir got the high ankle sprain in the scrimmage. He's supposed to play week 1. We'll see. But I like how this wide receiver room is shaped up. I'm okay with keeping 6. I thought they'd keep 5. But that was my initial projections back in June, July, before the emergence of Tyrell Shavers and then the multitude of injuries that happened. So maybe they're hedging their bets a little bit. We'll see. Oh, Just the Tippy Canoe says, I like the idea of 6 receivers. The idea of more corners is nice, but if it means our stronger group is wide receiver, then be it. Pick the best players. Thank you very much for being here. As always, Just the Tippy Canoe. And thank you very much for your super chat. I think your comment is fair. We're going to get to corner in a little bit. But I don't know if anybody that was cut at corner was necessarily worth not keeping one of these wide receivers. I think if it comes down to it, again, especially thinking of who's at the bottom end of the wide receiver depth chart, would you rather keep Dane Jackson or Elijah Moore or Dane Jackson or Tyrell Shavers? That's really kind of, I think, what it's coming down to from a depth chart standpoint, unless you're a huge Daquan Hardy fan. Would you have rather kept Daquan Hardy or Tyrell Shavers or Elijah Moore? I would lean wide receiver just because I think those guys are better players, potentially more useful at this standpoint. But I could understand someone moving in a different direction. Yeah, you followed it up with a good comment. Shavers is a better football player than any corner that would be our 6th best corner. And I think there's some upside to Shavers as well from an experience standpoint, with an idea that he could get better, start to tap into his ceiling a little bit. Tight ends, I don't really have much. I think this was pretty straightforward from the get-go. Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, Jackson Hawes. I really like what Jackson Hawes brings. I like the physicality. He had some really nice blocks this preseason. I think he's going to be a force on the front side in legitimately people moving defensive ends and edges, mauling linebackers, sealing guys, displacing them. I'm excited. What I think is an interesting note, and again, this is a longer term conversation, is I'm going to look up Dawson Knox's contract right now because I wonder if, his dead cap hit this year. Wow. He's got a dead cap hit in 2025 of $21 million. I'm not even going to look into the trade versus release aspect post-June 1st because Dawson Knox isn't going anywhere. But next offseason, if Dawson Knox is released pre-June 1st, dead cap hit of 7.4, savings of 9.6. Same thing if he's traded. If he's released after June 1st next year, it's a dead cap hit of $5 million in 2026, 2.3 in 2027, and then a 2026 savings of $12 million. Same exact scenario if he's traded. I say all that to say, I don't think it's completely crazy that if Jackson Hawes is really a viable and successful and significant blocker as a true inline wide tight end, and if he can do enough as a pass catcher, I don't think it's crazy that they potentially move on from Dawson Knox next offseason. The thing that I think honestly complicates it the most is his relationship with Josh Allen. And I don't know if that would rub him the wrong way and what that means from a politicking standpoint or a non-on-the-field standpoint. I didn't love the contract that Knox got when he got it. I don't think he's played up to it. Even though, they've kind of maneuvered some things around a little bit between his availability and just his overall progression. And then his usage, like he's not quite I feel like Knox is kind of the caught in between guy right now. I still do think he has athleticism, obviously, and he's improved as a blocker each season that he's been with the Bills. But now with Hawes and Kincaid on the roster, I feel like Knox is in this no man's land where he's not the best pass catching tight end option because that's Kincaid. And now he's no longer the best run blocking tight end because that's Hawes. But Knox is the best combination between run blocker and pass catcher because he's a much better pass catcher than Jackson Hawes, and he's I wouldn't say much better blocker than Kincaid, but he is definitely a better blocker than Kincaid and has made a lot of strides there. So it's this weird group for next year. This year, I think it's fine. I'm excited to see what Hawes can do being incorporated into this offense this year, but again, not too many surprises with that tight end position. I'm going to go to the comments here. She says, I hope Tyrell Shavers gets an opportunity to show what he has in a real game. I think that would be fun. This is funny from John saying, can you start from the beginning again? My closed captions are going too fast. I like that. Oh, Roy, nice. Roy says, considering what they paid Knox in his role, the Samuel contract isn't terrible. And then with the, eye roll emoji. Yeah, both are not great, but I'm picking up what you're putting down. This is a great comment here. It's important to remember our knowledge of injuries and what plans are for players is extremely surface level. There's a lot we don't know. Yes, that's why I made sure to title this episode the initial 53-man roster. There could be some gamesmanship happening. We have guys that could make the roster that could be, designated in certain ways that are advantageous to the roster. So there are some things, yes, that we don't know. Very fair point. What else? Ooh, Exile Cultivation wants to trade one of the wide receivers later. Roy says, with more, could we see a few more jet sweeps? I think you could, potentially. You also could see that with Curtis Samuel as well. We just have to see who's healthy. Ooh, James says, will Zach Davidson get claimed? I don't think so. There's a chance. I don't think so. I think he's more of a practice squad kind of dude. Mentat saying my concern is safety still. I don't get why we didn't grab an available vet like Justin Simmons to be at least in the room. We can't bet that our D-line can pressure enough to make up for that gap. We will talk about safety as we go forward. Ooh, Timbo, I'm going to say a bit of a hot take or a spicy take. He says Hawes is going to end up being a better pass catcher than Knox. We'll see. I do think Hawes is more effective as a pass catcher in the 0 to 10 yard range, not than Knox, but than he gets credit for. I think he has some, not, burst explosion, but because he's a powerful guy, I think he has some explosion, 0 to 10 yards. I think he can be effective as a pass catcher in that range. And that's more than fine considering how good of a blocker he is. We'll see. Fair comment here. Knox is a reliable piece. He blocks his butt off and is good for half a dozen clutch catches per season. Fair, but if you're playing devil's advocate, he's also good for what feels like half a dozen non-clutch drops and inconsistency. I like him. I don't like what he gets paid, and I just think he's caught again in that no man's land, but we'll see. Oh, Matt says, where does Hawes rank as a blocking tight end league-wide? I have to see him against the ones. I have to see him as an actual player in the regular season, not against, the 2s and the 3s like he has this preseason. But I will say his people moving ability against actual defensive ends, guys that are 300 pounds, he can get under them and through them and take them out the club. That isn't tremendously common. So there's a chance he could be already as a rookie towards the top in effectiveness. But if we're comparing, blocking tight ends, are we just comparing him to pure blocking tight ends or to all tight ends who are kind of starters? But regardless, I need to see him against ones and in the starting roster, I should say, regular season action, and kind of see what we get from there. Let's go to the next position group here, the offensive line. Someone noted it earlier, the activation of Cedric Van Pran Granger. So no IR or, pup or anything for him right now. He can start getting after it as soon as he's able to. And the offensive line, we have 9 right now. Deion Dawkins, David Edwards, Connor McGovern, Osiris Torrance, Spencer Brown, your starting five. And then your reserves, Alec Anderson, Cedric Van Pran Granger, Chase Lunt, Ryan Vandermark. Now, what I do wonder, and this is something we'll get into later with the injuries, Tylen Grable being banged up. I am interested to see. I'm actually going to, scroll fast really quick and show you that Tylen Grable is there on the injured reserve piece, which we are going to talk about in a little bit here on this episode. Once Grable is healthy, they will have to make room on the 53. My thought is the way they make room is probably with Chase Lunt being moved in some capacity in order to activate Grable. I didn't think Lunt had a great preseason, but they just picked him up. He's a rookie. He's got some positional flex. Vandermark also struggled a bit this preseason, but I think his spot is more secure than Lunt's is. So if we're looking at this group right now, I really do think the top 7 are more than set and more than safe with Dawkins, Edwards, McGovern, Torrance, Brown, Alec Anderson, and SVPG. I think that's set. And then it comes down to when Grable comes back, who gets bounced? It's probably Lunt, and then who outranks who between Grable and Vandermark. But overall, I don't think crazy amount of shock or anything for the offensive line. I think the biggest thing, again, as someone noted earlier in the chat, was that Cedric Van Pran Granger, after missing a bunch of camp and the entire preseason, the fact that he was activated and made the 53 and not have to be put on the PUP or put on the short-term IR or anything like that. Oh, comment here from John Robert. This is a good one, saying, will Jackson Hawes take time away from Alec Anderson? Ooh, good question. The Bills led the league in, jumbo sets and 6 offensive linemen on the field at one time last year with Alec Anderson, and kind of how they weaponized that personnel grouping. They had a really effective pass game and run game out of that personnel grouping. They were strong on tape and within their advanced metrics. I hope not. I think he'll eat into it a little bit, but I don't think, the Alec Anderson reps and the jumbo looks and the 6 offensive lineman stuff is going to go away completely. What I do want to see is kind of leaning into it harder in terms of putting Alec Anderson and Jackson Hawes on the field at the same time. And then if we go Alec Anderson, Jackson Hawes, and Reggie Gilliam, I just don't know how you combat that on the front side with how defenses are built nowadays. You're going to really need to go heavy to combat a front side of Jackson Hawes, Alec Anderson, and Reggie Gilliam. And then Gilliam and Hawes are still athletic enough that you can go play action and release them into the flat or into the underneath or maybe even the low intermediate and really catch teams. If you pair that with a Josh Allen bootleg, now you're getting him on the move in the pocket. Maybe you create an explosive opportunity downfield depending on who the solo receiver is. I don't think Alec Anderson's role is going anywhere. I think Hawes will eat into it a little bit, but I hope they kind of lean more into a heavy piece. Again, just with, I like the comments from Timbo and Matt in the chat right now. Given the condensed nature of their offense, reducing the formational width and how important the run game is, so much of football now is matchups. And you trying to dictate the matchup to the other side of the ball, defense versus offense, offense versus defense. And if you can put a defense in hell purely by personnel, do it. And I really think the Bills can. It's part of what made the Bills successful last year. Their wide receivers being big, but also athletic and being able to function as pass catchers and blockers, it put defenses into a bind. And I think you could do that again with having like Hawes, Anderson, and Gilliam in together, because how do you answer that as a defense? So many defenses are nickel defenses now with a true nickel. So in order to combat that, you either need another linebacker or a big nickel, third safety. You might even need to go like heavier than that. Like you really have to have the right type of guys. You need an edge that can set the run. You can't have too much of a pass rush focused edge. If it's an edge 1 or an edge 2, are you flipping the side, that your edge 1 is on? If he's more rush focused, to kind of put him on the backside than the front side. You can put a defense in some schematic hell and make them have to answer questions by getting crazy with how heavy and physical you go on the front side. So I'm excited for that. That's a good question. I appreciate folks being excited for that. And this is a good comment here too, right? Saying, I love that idea. It would give Keon one-on-one matchups in space. That's a fun thing too, right? So if that's all your heavy piece attached to the formation, you're going to have a solo pass catcher out essentially one-on-one That could be Josh Palmer, who excels in beating man coverage and winning one-on-one, especially underneath in the intermediate. It could be Keon Coleman. It could be Dalton Kincaid. And maybe he's up against a corner who he has an advantage of because he's longer and he's bigger and he's still athletic and is still a good route runner. There's a whole bunch of questions you can force a defense to answer with that, type of heavier personnel package and look, especially situationally. And especially because defenses are going to have to walk dudes into the box because they're going to have to honor the run out of that look. The Bills could just line up in that and run duo and blow defenses off the ball, mix in some weak side mid zone like they like to do and attack the weak side, away from the strength. There's just so much they can do with that. And potentially open up some things for that solo wide receiver, whether it's Keon or someone else. And again, tying into the explosive piece, you go play action, let Palmer maybe beat somebody on a double move, hit him downfield. A lot of options. I'm excited for that. Steve said, if you sit and just focus on Hawes in the preseason games, the dude can block. I was having some Lee Smith visions. Oh, I put out a bunch of clips purely of Hawes this preseason, just with him, people moving the hell out of dude's front side. It was a nice piece. Yeah. But good offensive line grouping, really strong starting five. Biggest thing to watch is Spencer Brown's health, everyone's health. This offensive line has played a lot of games together as a starting unit the past 2 years. Spencer Brown got hurt this past offseason, missed some time. It seems like he knows what, caused the injury in terms of how he was working out and how much he was pushing himself. Sounds like he's in a good place now. But that offensive line is a real quality group as in terms of pass protection and run blocking. They need to stay healthy. And then, again, I do think they have a real solid top six. Alec Anderson gives you some positional flex on the interior, even playing tackle as well. And then I like Cedric Van Pran-Granger. I hadn't seen a ton of regular NFL season snaps, so we'll see what he can be. But overall, solid group. And then I think once Grable comes back, Lunt goes, Vandermark stays, and we'll still sit there with 9. But a good group and not too many surprises. All right, let's move on to the defensive line. I am grouping the defensive line as one group. So we're going to talk about the edges and the defensive tackles. I don't think too many surprises when it comes to the edges / defensive ends. Greg Rousseau, Joey Bosa, AJ Epinesa, Javon Solomon, Landon Jackson. I don't think anything too crazy. I don't think this is nuts. I think what'll be interesting, and the biggest question is, once Michael Hoyt comes back from suspension. Oh, I got to stop because we got a super chat. Morning Mayan says, oh, thank you very much for being here. And thank you for the super chat. She says, thanks, Aunt. Still love the tree. Thanks. Oh, yeah, because I'm a little smaller because I got the screen up here. You can only see it a little bit. But, still rocking the Christmas tree, as always. I appreciate you recognizing that. Thank you so much. RJ says, I'm surprised they kept the whole effing show, RVD. Nice reference. Nice reference there. I'm always a fan of a wrestling reference being woven in there. Yeah, the only real question for me with defensive end or the edge grouping is once Michael Hoyt comes back, who goes? Who goes to make space for Michael Hoyt entering the 53? Is it a defensive end? Is it one of the wide receivers? Is it some other position? Like, where do you make space? And then if it is from the edge grouping, I still do think, despite the fact that they both made the 53 here, I really do feel like Javon Solomon and Landon Jackson are fighting for reps here. And if someone has to get dropped, I'm assuming it would be Solomon because he's more likely to still get back to your practice squad than Jackson. I think if you cut Jackson in any way, shape, or form, it's going to be tough to get him back on the practice squad just because he's a rookie and he's got some traits that teams like. But Jackson would really have to fall off a cliff, I think, for him to get dropped when Hoyt comes back, and or Solomon would just have to be this pass rushing maven who's just got tons of production and effectiveness those first 6 weeks. Or it could be neither of those things, and they want to keep 6 defensive ends, and they're going to cut someone from another position group. But no surprises, I think, right now initially, especially with Hoyt being suspended. I think if Hoyt wasn't suspended, this could have been, maybe a little spicy group, depending on who got dropped. Defensive tackle, similar conversation. Because we have a suspension. But if you see here on the screen, they kept 5. Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, TJ Sanders, Deion Walker, Dwayne Carter. I don't think there are any surprises there. The only question is, would they still have kept 5 had Larry Ogunjobi been healthy? Looks like they probably would have. I would assume Dwayne Carter would have been bounced and would have been the outside man looking in. I think Carter is fine considering he's really defensive tackle 6. And if you wanted to keep 5 because Ogunjobi's out, he's defensive tackle 5. What I don't like with this group, and again, time will just really tell, you've got Ed Oliver, you've got Daquan Jones, you've got TJ Sanders, you've got Deion Walker, you've got Dwayne Carter. You only have one true one tech here, and that is Daquan Jones. Even when Ogunjobi's back from suspension, he's also a 3. So the only true one tech you have is Daquan Jones. That means other guys are going to have to moonlight in that role. TJ Sanders will probably see a lot of time at 3, but he'll see some 1 at some point. Deion Walker is going to see a bunch of time at 1, also some 3, but Walker's not, even though he's huge and a mountain of a man, he's not a true 1. He is more of a 3, even like a 4-eye and a 5. He's just a penetrator and an agile big man who looks to penetrate and slash. And then Dwayne Carter just has been really ineffective at almost anything and everything he's done. 3 tech, 1 tech. Playing the run, playing the pass, just a lot of ineffectiveness across the board for Carter. I think this one's pretty easy when Ogunjobi comes back. Carter drops to the practice squad or is just released. We'll kind of see what happens if anybody claims him. But he is entering year 2. I think there's a chance somebody might take a flyer on him. If he had a team who had a really high grade on him last year as a rookie, maybe they think they can be the ones to tap into him, which also could happen. If you commit him more to 3 tech and have him shed some weight and play more towards his Duke frame and weight than what he's been playing at in Buffalo, where they've asked him to have the ability to handle 1 tech and 3 tech responsibilities. In order to do that, he's had to put on some more weight. I think there's a chance somebody could tap into him and make him, a solid rotational 4, maybe even a 3 as a high end. But I think the floor is meh, and I think the ceiling is low for him. So we'll see what happens. I don't think Deion Walker's getting dropped unless he gets hurt and they have to move him to the PUP or the injury list. Like, he flashed really positively this preseason. I really like the way he came into camp and kind of repurposed his body weight, trimmed down. He looked like he was moving healthier. I think the only thing that compromises things for Walker this year is his health. I don't think he's going to see a ton of snaps. I do think there's even a chance where Carter outsnaps him to start the year maybe. But I think Walker, when everybody's good, when it's Ed, Daquan, Sanders, Ogunjobi, and Walker, I do think you'll see Walker maybe around like 15 snaps a game ballpark, but he's going 100 miles an hour for 100% each of those snaps. You're using him to just purely take advantage of he's fresh and he's a monster. Go inside and go be Godzilla or King Kong on this 3rd and 7 or on this 3rd and 8. Or, hey, we're up by 17 in the 4th quarter and they got to pass a ton. We're putting you in on this series because you're fresh and you can just wreck shop and we think they're going to have to pass the ball a ton. He's also been good on gap scheme recognition against the run, which has been really nice to see. But I do think run defense is still a work in progress for Deion Walker. I think he needs to consistently use his hands and play to his length to keep guys from getting into his chest, which he did much better against Tampa Bay than he did the week before against Chicago. Needs to work on not getting washed down. Leverage is always going to be a thing we got to keep an eye on, right? Him getting blown off the ball vertically or horizontally, getting washed down or, moved and displaced, things like that. But really positive preseason for Deion Walker. And I think he's locked into a roster spot. I don't think he's here because Ogunjobi is suspended. I think he's clearly in, the top 5 for this defensive tackle grouping. And once Ogunjobi comes back, Carter probably goes. But we'll see. We will see. RJ, I see your comment there. We will be getting in a corner in a little bit when we talk about Trey. This is good. Lauren's fantastic. Lauren says there's 440 people watching and only 60-something likes on YouTube. Don't do Anthony dirty like that. Everybody be like Lauren. I appreciate you very much for that, Lauren. Thank you. And yeah, I know it may seem corny, but like I always say, because it's true, likes are the lifeblood of these streams. So if you are enjoying this episode or you're happy about the Bills roster or you had a good day or you had a good dinner, or you're eating like some ice cream right now and it's delicious, or you're excited about Hard Knocks, whatever. If you're feeling good, drop a like on this video. Obviously, it's better if you're dropping a like because you actually like the content, but likes are tremendously helpful. So please, 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 and thank you. Drop a like if you folks are enjoying this content. Andrew says he is still underwhelming at 3 tech. Are you talking about Carter or are you talking about Walker? If you're talking about Carter, yes, he's underwhelming either way and ineffective. Carter, I'm assuming you're talking about Carter, but I'll wait for your answer. RJ says, if you can't teach a 6'7", 340-pound monster how to be a 1 tech, then your D-line coach sucks. Fair, but also part of it is the body type and the composition. It's hard. Okay, Andrew says Carter. That's what I figured. We're on the same page. It's hard to teach a guy that big to play that role. Like you might think, oh, he's a monster, so he should play a monster type of role. But because of how he's built, I think it's harder for him to anchor. It's harder for him to have leverage. And being able to anchor and have leverage are two really key cogs and important parts of being able to play one tech. You got to be able to withstand double teams. You got to be able to either anchor and play with leverage, or you got to be able to drop the knee, be able to have that lower body flexibility, that torque in your upper body to kind of reduce your surface area and play off of it. And that's aside from having the block recognition, the hand usage, all of that, right? I do think it is a work in progress, and you can be coached up for some of it. But for as much as his size might make you think he should be coached into a one tech role or should be able to, I think you could also play devil's advocate and make like the case for the other side that his size also might be a detriment to him playing one tech because he can't anchor, or not that he can't, because it's harder for him to. But I'm excited to see what he does. And, again, I was pleasantly surprised with his preseason play. I will say that. Roy said Carter was drafted to be a penetrating 3-tech, Oliver's backup. Now they're trying to make him a 1-tech. How much of his underwhelming play is actually his fault? I think that's a very fair comment. I've said it on the show. Like, I think they tried to take a bit of a round peg and put it in a square hole. And as a result, he got caught in no man's land. I always thought the run defense piece would be a struggle for him. Double teams were a struggle for him at Duke. And he would get blown off the ball from time to time. But I thought his calling card would be him being a rotational 3, penetrating and rushing the QB. And then they had him add some more weight. And then he's also playing 1-tech. I don't think the way they used him played to his traits and his skill set necessarily. So some of it is on him, but I do think some of it is on the staff for kind of what they asked him to do or what they wanted him to do. Same thing for Austin Johnson last year. Austin Johnson was a big plugger and a rotational 1 at his previous stops. They had him shed some weight to kind of moonlight as a 1 and a 3. So it was like they kind of put him and Carter into no man's land a little bit. Oh, good question and comment here. Chris says, what is the difference between a 1-tech and a 3-tech for those of us that don't know? I'm sure I'm not the only one. So 1-tech and 3-tech refers to where they are aligned. So a 1-tech is aligned on the shoulder of the center. Sometimes you'll hear people refer to it as a shade. So if you're lined head up on the center, that's a 0 technique. If you're lined up on the shoulder, that's a 1 technique. And then a 3 technique is also referred to an alignment. So if we keep going down the line, head up on the center is a 0. Outside shoulder of the center is a 1. Inside shoulder of the guard, if we keep going down the line, is a 2I. Head up on the guard is a 2. Outside shoulder of the guard is a 3. So different alignments and then also different usages. Usually if you are a 1-tech, you're more of a Daquan Jones type of player. So you're handling the inside more on the run. You are more of an anchor presence, kind of a run fitter and a plugger to a degree. Although in the Bills defense, you still need to get upfield. 3-tech, you are obviously further outside from the ball. You're usually aligned to kind of the open side of that formation, being able to get upfield, attack the quarterback, penetrate. There's a different level of responsibilities, but it all starts with that initial alignment and where you are. And if you really want to kind of put it into perspective of what does a 1-tech look like or what does a 3-tech look like? A 1-tech is Daquan Jones, a 3-tech is Ed Oliver. So think of how both those guys play and what you see them doing. That's what a 1-tech is. That's what a 3-tech is. Good question. I like questions like that because it reminds me that not everybody's a regular watcher or listener of the show. So if anybody ever has a question like that, if I'm talking about an alignment or a technique or a coverage or a concept, anything, always feel free to ask those questions. Really appreciate you asking that, Chris. Thank you very much. Steve says, when Hoyt comes back, could Shaq Thompson be the guy that gets cut if our linebackers are healthy? Oh, potentially, because they did keep 5. We'll talk about it. Actually, let's move on to the linebackers there. We're going to combine it all into one group. Not all in one group, but this next group, and we're going to do linebackers, DBs, and we're going to do safeties. We'll start with the linebackers there. Yeah, 5 linebackers for the Bills. Terrell Bernard, Matt Milano, Dorian Williams, Joe Andreessen. I don't think any of those are a surprise. You got your starters in Bernard and Milano. Dorian Williams is linebacker 3. If they're going to go 3 linebackers on the field, if they're going to take out Taron Johnson and replace him with a linebacker, it's Dorian Williams. I think I might just said Dorian Strong. Great. Now I'm going to do the Dorian name thing the way I do the Jackson and Spencer Hawes thing. Fantastic. So Bernard, Milano, Dorian, Andreessen. Top 4 I thought was pretty set. Andreessen gives you special teams value. Dorian gives you special teams value. And Dorian is the clear linebacker 3 here. Linebacker 5, I thought was kind of a toss-up. I thought Jimmy Charlo had an actual chance to make the roster because of his special teams value. And the Bills have talked about keeping guys just for special teams value. And Charlo made some plays on defense as well. Spector obviously got cut earlier on. So I thought linebacker 5 was a bit of a toss-up if they were going to keep the 5th linebacker. The biggest toss-up piece for me was if Shaq Thompson was healthy or not, and if he could make the 53. He had some nice plays in camp. He knows this defense. He's a veteran presence. I don't think he has any legs left. And he already kind of got banged up this camp, but he is linebacker 5 for the moment. Now, Lauren says, did I catch you singing the Burger King bottom? I might have just been like, bah, bah, bah. I don't know if that was that officially. That's fair. I might have done it subconsciously, the way I call Jackson Hawes Spencer. That's fair. I want to go back to that comment. Where are we? Oh, I went too far in the comments. Sorry. Well, whoever asked would they drop Shaq Thompson once Hoyt comes back? It depends on what they want to do with Shaq Thompson. What's interesting with Shaq Thompson is, obviously he's the 5th linebacker. Usually their 5th linebacker gets a lot of special teams work. I don't know how much special teams work he's going to get. And if he does, I would think it's probably on punt coverage. Granted, the kick return game is a bit of a different mixture now with the new rules. So he could see some kickoff coverage stuff or some kick return stuff, but I don't see him being a huge factor on special teams, but I would assume he's going to be because they're keeping him as that 5th linebacker. But it'll really be determined by what they use Shaq Thompson as and what he looks like. I think it's a possibility that maybe they cut him, and that's, to make room. If all 5 defensive ends are cruising, right? Rousseau and Bosa and Epinesa and Solomon and Jackson, and then you're bringing Hoyt back and you're like, we don't want to drop one of the edges. Where can we cut? Shaq Thompson might be somebody that gets moved to make room for Hoyt, or maybe make room for Ogunjobi. If there isn't a like-for-like kind of application available there. But kudos to Shaq Thompson making this team. Again, McDermott loves him. He's got familiarity with the staff. And the system. He's got a tremendous head on his shoulders. He knows the game. He's probably a wealth of knowledge for that linebacker room, especially for somebody like Terrell Bernard, who is super smart, super cerebral, super heady, was very pro-ready coming out of Baylor, coming from Dave Aranda's defense there, and then fitting into this defense. I think Shaq Thompson could be a real nice piece to the development of Terrell Bernard. And even just keeping him on the roster for that, so he can be in the room to increase that dude's knowledge, that could be fun. But yeah, I don't think too many crazy surprises with linebacker. It really came down to who was the 5th dude that they were going to keep, and it ended up being Shaq Thompson. I just didn't know how healthy he was going to be. He was going to be. See, a lot of questions still coming through on the defensive tackles. I'll answer them now. Some now here. Andrew says, understand that Walker probably won't be 3 tech on early rush downs, but do you think they would put him in on 3rd and longs there? Yeah, I think they'll use him a bunch. I think you're not even just him. I think you're going to get a lot of different looks for the defensive line on known rush downs or on known, passing down in distance or situations. I think you could see Bosa kicked inside. I think you could see TJ Sanders in a wide alignment, like in a 4-eye or head up on a tackle, and then Greg Rousseau or Bosa outside of him. I think you could see Walker head up on a center all the way to kind of being at a 5, like on the outside shoulder of a tackle. I think there's a lot of potential to do a lot of mixing and matching with the body types that they have once you get into known passing situations. Again, whether it's down in distance or situationally in the game, I think that's a potential for Walker, but potential for a lot of guys on this defensive line, which is fun and a very cool and encouraging thing. And yeah, I mean, again, as far as Deion Walker, he's huge. I don't think he's a run first guy. He's a pass rush first kind of guy, which makes sense because that's what the Bills like on the interior. But if he can keep reading gap schemes and keep understanding that, oh, the center just moved away from me. Here comes the down block. Let me beat that guy. Let me gum up another down block, create some freedom. There is something to be said for, not defending the run with displacement, but defending it with penetration and chaos creation. And Walker could be a step in that direction. So nothing crazy for the linebackers. Again, kudos to Shaq. Good comment here saying, Bernard and Milano's injury history makes extra vet linebacker depth a good idea. I think that's fair. It's just a matter of how much real depth is Shaq Thompson and how much he can move. It didn't seem like he had anything really left in his legs last year in Carolina. He's been hurt so much, but we'll see. Defensive backs. Talked about it a bit. So we've got 7 DBs, essentially cornerbacks here. Christian Benford, Tre'Davious White, Dorian Strong, Jamarcus Ingram, Taron Johnson, Cam Lewis, Brandon Codrington. Now, Codrington should have an asterisk because I do not think he's a real defensive back in any shape or form. He is return specialist only, which means we really only have Benford, Trey, Strong, Ingram, Taron, and Cam Lewis. He essentially got 6 DBs. Now, what's nice, and I talked about this earlier today, if Trey White is hurt and unable to go in week 1, which him not having an injury designation, I think is good news that he might be trending in the right direction to play in week 1. Max Hairston was already put on the injured list. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But if Trey is out for week 1, I know a lot of folks are high on Dorian Strong. I want Jamarcus Ingram starting at CB2, especially against Baltimore. What he offers as a run defender and as a run fitter, inside-outside versatility, the physicality and the nastiness he plays with. And while not being the strongest cover guy, I still do think he's a better coverage guy than he gets credit for. I would like Jamarcus Ingram to start at CB2 in week 1 if Trey White is unable to go. Overall, I like this room. You've got a true CB1 in Christian Benford. We'll see what Trey White looks like from a health standpoint and overall. We'll see what this group looks like when Hairston comes back. And then Dorian Strong. I was a bit underwhelmed by Strong this preseason, largely from a run defense standpoint. Just not good in his run fits, not good at, the crack replaces or stepping up and being a force player against duo. So a bit unfortunate there, but I understand his pedigree and his scheme fit. So him making the roster isn't crazy. Again, I like Jamarcus Ingram, inside, outside versatility. I think this is where, and why I have everything listed together, you start to get some positional value in flex. Jamarcus Ingram can play inside in the slot. He can also play outside as a corner. Cam Lewis is your backup nickel number 1. I also think he might be safety 3. I know he's not listed here as a safety. I think Cam Lewis is safety 3 and Damar Hamlin is safety 4. I think we'll see. We've also got Jordan Hancock who can play a little nickel, but it looks like they're converting him and kind of not compromising him, committing him to more of a true safety role. So an interesting mix, I think, in the overall defensive back room between corner and safety. But again, if we're talking about true corners, it's Benford, Trey, Strong, Jamarcus Ingram. Like if you're talking outside corners only, it is those 4 guys. And when Hairston comes back, we'll see what that means for Strong. We'll see what that means for Ingram. We'll see what kind of the maneuverability happens there. And then again, Cam Lewis is your backup nickel. And I think safety 3, maybe safety 4. I know they love Damar Hamlin, but Cam Lewis has played better than Damar Hamlin. We'll see. I guess I'll use that as a way to transition to safety. I don't think too many surprises here. They want Rapp and Bishop to be the guys. I think it makes sense for them to be the guys. Hamlin. Oh, yeah, Hamlin. I was going to say Hamler. That's KJ Hamler. He got cut. Hamlin has not looked good this preseason as a tackler in coverage. Just a lot of not good stuff coming from Damar Hamlin. But they like him, and he's responsible, and he's reliable at the safety position. So we'll see. I know a lot of folks don't feel great about Hamlin and have soured on him and are frustrated with the safety position. I have waxed far too poetically on this safety group throughout the offseason and my concerns on the fit between Bishop and Rapp and my trepidation about Bishop's fit in this defense and where I thought he would fit better. So I don't want to go on again about something I've talked about too much at that spot, but I'm hopeful for safety, but I'm concerned about it. I'm concerned. I think Hamlin is a fine depth safety at a safety 3 or a safety 4, a guy who can fit in and be a Band-Aid. I would like to see Cam Lewis as safety 3 ahead of Hamlin on the depth chart. I like Jordan Hancock a lot. I don't think he's ready to see real NFL reps. He is still processing the game inefficiently at this point in terms of reading run to pass, understanding where he has to be. I like his athleticism. I like his physicality. He just needs more time on task. I don't think that's a bad thing. He's a rookie. I think there's a chance Jordan Hancock could be a safety of the future. And it could be him and Cole Bishop next year starting potentially. I think that's a fun thing. I think it's cool that Hancock made the 53 this year. He's probably going to see some good teams work. He'll be able to learn in that room from Taylor Rapp every week and even from Hammond a little bit. But Rapp is really smart. He understands this defense. I think this will be a good learning year or a redshirt year for Jordan Hancock. And we might see, some potential for him next year. But the starters are going to be Rapp and are going to be Bishop. And, spicy take from Lauren. And Lauren says, I'm putting money on Poyer being on our team at some point this season based solely on Bean's affinity for signing previous players. You know what? I don't think that's the craziest idea. I think there's a non-zero chance, but like a sincere one. I don't think that's completely crazy. I don't think he has a lot left in the tank, but I don't think that's crazy given Bean's affinity for signing previous players. I don't think that's crazy. Fair point. Yeah, and this is a fair comment from Austin about Hamlin. Seems like Hamlin doesn't make big mistakes, but he's such a low ceiling player. That's exactly it. He's a high floor, low ceiling. Not a lot of athleticism. Doesn't play with a lot of anticipation and coverage. Isn't really clicking and closing on the ball in space. He's not making plays on the ball. He's more of a down safety. You can blitz him. He'll play the run. He's normally a sure tackler. But that athleticism, man, it limits him. He doesn't have a lot of foot speed, doesn't have a lot of juice, burst, long speed. You put a move on him and get him to stop his feet, and he's in trouble. But again, fine for a depth guy. He's responsible and reliable in a lot of respects, which, again, you're not going to have 4 studs at one position with 2 backups who are studs and 2 starters that are studs. I think he's good enough to get the job done as a depth safety and as a Band-Aid, but I would prefer him not to start. If Bishop or Rapp go down, I want Cam Lewis as safety 3. I want him as the next man up. We'll see if that comes to fruition or if safety 3 really is DeMar Hamlin. Again, the depth chart's going to be wonky because Cam is the backup nickel. So even if they list Cam as a safety, he's still going to be the backup nickel. And if they list him as the backup nickel, I hope he's still safety 3. But a good group. You got some versatility. We'll see what happens when Hairston comes back from injury. Who gets bounced, if anyone, or do they cut or rob from another group? Happens here, but very interesting. Mark says, I would prefer Poyer over Hamlin as a depth option. I didn't watch enough of Poyer last year to make a hard comment on this. I didn't watch a lot of Dolphins defense tape. One of the few teams who had a unit that I didn't really watch a ton, other than scouting them for the Bills games. But that's fair, but also, I don't know. Carl says, Ant, what are your thoughts on whether the D-line will be able to consistently get into the backfield to harass the QB and to take the pressure off the corners and safeties? I feel good to a degree. I think the proof needs to be in the pudding, and we need to see what happens come regular season time. But I think they upgraded the pass rush aspect of the defensive line. My bigger concern is being able to stop the run and fit the run from the interior. I'm worried about the interior defensive line and the spine, by extension, of holding up against the run and not getting blown off the ball or displaced. But Sanders has been really encouraging. Walker's been really encouraging. That's just automatically better on the interior, what they had last year. I think Bosa is going to be more effective than Von. I know Von Miller's advanced metrics and stats looked really good. His pass rush productivity, I think when you watch the tape, it wasn't necessarily the case, but I think Bosa can give you more than Von did. We'll see what happens with Jackson and Solomon. I'm hopeful. I do think there are still questions about the pass rush capability for the defensive line as a whole. and I'm not completely confident and satisfied at this point, but I'm hopeful, especially from the interior. RJ says, if Cole Bishop is somehow not a bust, that's decent safety depth. Hamlin should still have had 5 turnovers last year, including the playoffs, 3 taken away from officiating. That's a solid safety 3. Yeah, well, that's a pretty rational take from you, RJ. I'm surprised. Look at you. I feel like you're growing up so fast. Yeah, Hamlin, I think, is a fine safety 3. Again, I don't mean this disrespectfully. I think he's a fine Band-Aid, and he's a fine depth player. I don't want him to be a starter. If he's your starter, it should be because one of your actual starters got hurt. But he's fine as a depth guy. He's fine as a Band-Aid. I still would prefer Cam Lewis over him. If Rapper Bishop get hurt, I would prefer Cam Lewis to step in at safety over Hamlin. We'll see. We will see. But yeah, that's linebackers. That's defensive backs. Overall, CBs, safeties. We'll see what happens when with Hairston, I should say, when he comes back. Take a look at the specialists here. I don't think this is anything crazy. I'm also going to keep going and go through the specialists to the injured and reserved. So, Tyler Bass, Brad Robbins, Reed Ferguson. I didn't even put this as a banner on the bottom. No disrespect. They just thought that was pretty cut and dry. It was really just, is Bass hurt or not? So we got Bass, we have Robbins, we have Reed Ferguson, nothing crazy. Injured reserve. It's listed for you right here. Maxwell Hairston and Tylen Grable. We talked about Grable earlier. I think when Grable comes back, again, all things being equal and nothing happens to the top 9 as of right now, I think Grable comes back. Chase Lunt gets moved. Hairston, again, as a noted both there, Hairston and Grable are designated as eligible to return and are eligible to be activated week 5. We'll see if that happens or how that happens. We'll see how Hairston progresses. I do think it's very realistic that he's ready and active by week 5. And then if that's the case, we'll see if one of the corners get bounced or if someone else gets bounced for Hairston's return. And then what we also have there, reserve or suspended, Michael Hoyt, Larry Ogunjobi. As noted at the bottom there of the page, Hoyt and Ogunjobi are eligible to return week 8 at Carolina. That is because they're suspended for the first 6 games. Week 7, they have a bye week. So they're eligible to come back in week 7, but the Bills don't play a game that week. So it'll be first 6 weeks they're suspended, and then they can get right back at it, start practicing. Week 7, there's no game. So week 8 is the first opportunity they can come back, which is at Carolina. Laid out right there. Again, now, for those who don't know, in order to activate any of those 4, in order to activate Hairston, Grable, Hoyt, or Ogunjobi, doesn't matter if they're injured or suspended, to activate any of those guys to the 53-man roster, somebody has to be moved. They have to be released. They have to be traded. They have to be waived. Somebody has to leave the 53 for one of those guys to come to the 53. That's why we talked about it a bit earlier. We'll see, again, who gets moved, what gamesmanship happens. Again, there still could be some stuff that shakes down now. We could see some announcements later tonight or tomorrow or throughout the week that someone gets put on the pup or someone gets put on this. Somebody could get hurt week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, anything like that. And it makes it easy just to add them and drop a practice squad guy who got called up for a week. So there's a lot of moving and shaking that could potentially still happen. But keep that in mind. Again, for any one of these 4 to come to the 53, someone currently on the 53 has to go bye-bye. And let's see. Anything else on that page? Nope. All right. So I'm going to stop the screen share there. We're still going to keep talking here on this episode. Oh, now I don't have the banner on the top. That's annoying. There it is. Let's bring up practice squad priorities. I want to go back to, I think I started. Yeah. Bills are electric. He put a long practice squad hopeful list together earlier. He said, my practice squad hopefuls, Frank Gore Jr., Stephen Gosnell, Keonta Jenkins, Jimmy Charlo, KJ Hamler, Zion Logue, Corey Couch, Shane Buechele, Jordan Phillips, Christian Wilkerson, Dane Jackson, and then Latu, the tight end. I echo a lot of these. Give me priority to Gore. I thought Gosnell had some positive things that he did. I liked Keonta Jenkins. He moved well. He flashed. He had some juice to him and some finishing ability. I'm cool with Charlo coming back. I'm really cool with all these guys. That would make us up a significant chunk of my list of hopefuls. I like Corey Couch. He went to the U, and I thought he showed some things. Jordan Phillips, I guess we'll talk about it a bit. He's going to be on the practice squad. We'll see if he matters at any point during the season. I hope he doesn't. I know he had that awesome sack against the Chiefs. I don't think he really has much left to offer, but culture, fit, he's always performed better with the Bills. I get it. I understand that. I don't think it's crazy or the end of the world that he got added to the practice squad, but I still don't like it. But we'll see. I think it's a very fine list there. Yeah, ooh, good call here from Timbo saying Keontae Jenkins caught my eye. Ram Bam says agree with that potential practice squad list. Ooh, Thomas saying I hope they bring Zay Alexander back for the practice squad. Yeah, rookie corner from LSU they brought in for this last week. Jason, you're a fan of the Jordan Phillips move, saying even if he doesn't, I think having Jordan Phillips as a backup is awesome. That's fair. I am not, but to each their own. And Austin says, got to get the Hard Knocks All-Stars on there, Charlo and Hamlin. Yeah. Oh, I forgot that Hard Knocks is tonight. Good call. Yeah, I hope Charlo comes back. I don't know who my biggest practice squad priority guy would be. I really like Frank Gore. I just don't know if he's going to be able to crack the roster this year or next year, but I like Frank Gore a lot. But that practice squad list I thought from Bills Are Electric was really super solid. And I think a lot of the guys that the Bills cut, they would like to bring back, or the guys that they waived. Even somebody like last year, Daquan Hardy got cut. It was unfortunate. He got waived. He came back to the practice squad. I think it would be nice to see, several of those guys come back. And I thought Bills Are Electric. Your list was really solid. So that's why I started. I wanted to note that. Carl says, which player will you be most excited to see if we're able to get him back on the practice squad? Wide receiver Christian Wilkerson or Jimmy Charlo? You know what? I like Wilkerson and some of the things that he did at wide receiver, like actual offensive snaps. I'm going to say Charlo just because I think Charlo's path to making an impact on the team is easier than Wilkerson's. Like Wilkerson has to hop a significant amount of hurdles and players to contribute meaningfully on offense. He could contribute on special teams, but I think Charlo is the better special teamer. And I think him being able to contribute on special teams is more likely than Wilkerson contributing on special teams or contributing on offense. So between those two, I would say Jimmy Charlo. Plus, I like the way his name sounds. He sounds like a mob assassin. Like, oh, we got to, whack some guy in Midtown. Call up Jimmy Charlo. It just sounds good. Sounds good. What else? Gingy says, don't we need a safety on the practice squad? Yeah, it could be Derek Forrest. Could be someone else. I think, maybe it's Jordan Poyer. Could be Derek Forrest. Gingy, I think you also asked earlier, I meant to start and I didn't. I think you asked me about what happened with Forrest. I think it was you. If it was somebody else, I apologize, and you're still here, feel free to let me know. Or Gingy, if it was you, because now it's in my brain and it's driving me nuts. I would like to see Forrest on the practice squad. It was you. Thank you, Gingy. Appreciate you. This is pure speculation by me. He looked heavier and thicker in person and on tape with the Bills than he did with Washington. I don't know if he was playing heavier or if he weighed more, but he just did not look as twitchy and as quick and as rangy as he did with Washington. And I think that was a significant piece for me of why, he didn't look great and potentially why he wasn't playing. I don't think it was, again, it could have been he wasn't grasping the defense or he was making mental errors. I think it was more of just kind of a movement thing and him not showing it. He looked heavier. I actually was looking up some of his Washington stuff today, and he just looked noticeably trimmer and he moved much differently than he did here with the Bills. So I don't know if they asked him to bulk up to play more of a different role or that's kind of what he did anyway, but he just didn't look like the same player that he did in Washington. The player I saw in Washington, I thought would have been an easy kind of top four on this team. Not necessarily a starter. I thought he could have competed if things went off the rails a bit, or even kind of outpace Hamlin, but it's not the case. So we'll see. Awesome, Lauren. Lauren says, I don't want to run into Jimmy Charlo and Tommy Cutlets in a dark alley. You do not. Sounds like killers from The Sopranos. Absolutely. Well said. I like that. Steve says the best. That's funny. The best. It's funny too, because Tommy Cutlets is a nickname, but Jimmy Charlo is just a real name. And that makes it even more badass. Steve says the two best players day in and day out at training camp have been Milano and Coleman. They need to be featured on Hard Knocks tonight. I need a Milano interview bad. I think that's fair. You know what I need bad? the best pizza in Buffalo, One Pie Pizza. The best pizza in Buffalo, New York. I don't say that because they sponsor the show. They sponsor the show because they are the best pizza in Buffalo, New York. I mean that wholeheartedly. I say it with my heart and all of my chest. Cup and char pepperoni, sweet sauce pie, homemade blue cheese, a breakfast pizza option that's delicious. They also have a catering division called Elevated Catering of Buffalo. They do all kinds of events. The food is awesome. It's not, I mean, you can still get pizza if you want, but they do different kinds of mac and cheeses. They do these great salads. They do this coconut rice and chicken dish that's awesome and out of this world. Really great stuff. The online menu for One Pie Pizza and their catering division can be found in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you're listening to this show on. And they do a ton of good stuff for the community, like I talk about all the time, partnering with Roswell to knock out cancer, the SPCA, the Alzheimer's Foundation, Toys for Tots. They're constantly trying to find ways to give back to the city and the community at large, aside from just giving everyone fantastic food on a regular basis. So, yeah, get yourself some One Pie Pizza. If you live in Buffalo, get yourself some One Pie Pizza. If you're traveling to Buffalo at some point, stop in, get yourself some One Pie Pizza. It is the best pizza in Buffalo, New York. Again, I don't say that because they sponsor the show. They sponsor the show because I think they are the best pizza. And for those who don't know, I had actually reached out to a different pizza spot to sponsor the show. One Pie heard it, reached out to me. I had never heard of One Pie. They offered me a free pizza to kind of see if I like their stuff. I tasted it and I have never gone back. True story. That's how this relationship developed. Get yourself some One Pie Pizza. I read this comment from Thomas and saw it. You said Za Frazier for the practice squad, also cut from the Bears. I read this as Zach Frazier, the center for the Steelers, and I got extremely excited out of nowhere. So that now I'm on the come down. Philip says, "Oh, who do you think will have a breakout season? Which player in the offense and which in the defense?" Real quick. Austin says, "You need a referral code. When you go in, tell them that Disguise Coverage sent you. When you go to One Pie Pizza, tell them Disguise Coverage sent you. You could also say Cover One, but tell them Disguise Coverage sent you. I know it's not a referral code. Tell them Disguise Coverage sent you." Philip says, "Who do you think will have a breakout season? Which player in the offense and which in the defense?" I guess it depends on what you define as breakout. Defensively, I think TJ Sanders is going to perform well. I think he's going to struggle against the run a bit, but I think he's going to have some good pass rushing numbers. And I think that will constitute a breakout. Nationally, I think Christian Benford's going to break out. I think he is very much slept on nationally, as evidenced by not even being referenced on the top cornerbacks list for ESPN. Like, not even honorable mention, nothing. So Benford is my big answer. I think nationally everybody will know who he is. Offensively, I think Osiris Torrance potentially in that conversation. And if he stays healthy, I think Dalton Kincaid puts up big pass catching numbers. Either him or Coleman, I think, has a breakout as a pass catcher. So Torrance, Coleman, Kincaid, those are kind of my options there. We'll see. We will see. Someone else had a comment here. No, I think that's everything. No. Gingy said, "Ant, are you concerned about special teams?" A little bit, because they were bad last year, but I have faith in Tabor to course correct and right the ship and get them to where they need to be. I'm going to throw up the banner that says Toodles, folks. I would continue to do this, and we could talk forever as we normally do on the show. But as I mentioned earlier, I've got to go and get ready for a call with some overseas partners that is happening in about 11 minutes. So I'm going to go. Thank you to everyone who tuned in live for this episode. If you have not already, please, and thank you. Drop a like on this video if you are watching here live. Likes are the lifeblood of these streams. Even if you are not watching live, that's fine. Drop a like on this video. They go such a huge, long way towards helping us to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears. And I hope you folks genuinely enjoyed this episode. If there was anything I didn't get to in this episode, get at me on Twitter, pro__ant. That's pro_ANT. If you're on Blue Sky, that's cool. Get at me there. Pro_ant, no underscores, just PROANT. Tweet at me, DM me, whatever you got. If you're a Cover One insider, get at me in the Discord. Best way is to DM me there because those notifications are always on. Get at me with that. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I should have another episode of Disguise Coverage dropping Thursday evening or Friday morning. It's with a very special guest. So I'm doing an offline episode with that special guest and dropping that probably, hopefully Thursday night, potentially Friday afternoon at like noonish, or we'll see, but probably Thursday evening. And then I'm also going to drop a Cole Bishop breakdown, breaking down some tape and some play from him, responsibilities, individual evaluation from his game against the Bears, and then the preseason finale against the Buccaneers. So 2 more episodes of Disguise Coverage coming from me this week, both shorter in nature, the Bishop breakdown, and then the special guest episode dropping this Thursday. I'll see when I drop the Bishop one in between, but keep an eye out on the YouTube channel for all that. Join me and Eric in the film room tomorrow. Thank you to everyone for anything and everything, every ounce of support. Thank you very much to Just the Tippy Canoe for the super chat and Morning Mayan for your super chat. And again, thank you to everyone who tuned in live. Hope you folks enjoyed this episode. If you didn't watch live, that's cool. Appreciate you watching anyway. If you're listening on one of the podcasting apps or platforms, please rate, review, and subscribe. Whatever form or fashion your support comes in, I am greatly appreciative of it and thankful for it. And yeah, tell your family and friends and loved ones about this show. If you hated this show, tell your enemies and try and ruin their day by making them watch it. I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. I will see you when I see you. Godspeed. Enjoy Hard Knocks. And as always, go Bills.